Welcome, folks, to Tabletop Totality. Today, we will be having a guest, and we will explain that guest in a little bit of their information for the black market. For our viewers at home. But I just want to take this moment, starting in, make sure, over at Tabletop Totality, we have a bunch of content for you to check out. Especially this month, we will be dropping many gorgeous things for you to look at in this Spooktober of a time. So we have adventures, monsters, items, all for 5th edition, and we just also released a third-party module, adventure module, for a game called Apotheosis. It'll be coming out to you. The Kickstarter just ended, so it'll be going to sale. You could just, look up Apotheosis, TTRPG, or you can go down into our stables below and click on them Bone Pony Ranch links that we always like to drop. Other than that, you can always watch us here on YouTube, like you're already doing, or over in our podcast department through Anchor, where it distributes to all of your podcast watching areas. But besides that, we are here talking about the future of Dungeons & Dragons, like many others in a similar field do, either other creators or just players, as the Wizards is talking about the next direction of the critically acclaimed tabletop RPG game. But before we go any further, of course, we should all introduce ourselves. So it's Neil.
Odie.
Steven.
And I'm Sean.
Sean, you are our new person coming in.
I am.
How many years do you have? For those who don't know, Sean plays many of our live plays with us. He's one of our groups. He plays in our own tabletop circle. But Sean, how many years do you have playing tabletop games?
So I don't know. I played when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Got out of it for a couple of years, and then I've been more seriously in it, I guess, since like 2014 when I went to college.
Gotcha. So what?
Getting pretty serious, you'd say.
Yeah.
Some call me a professional gamer.
Nice.
Semi-professional.
We're professionals, so that's very.
Well, it's season 2, so you had to up the caliber of the guests.
Yeah, that's it. What systems of Dungeons and Dragons have you played?
So I have played 3.5 and 5e
Gotcha.
for Dungeons and Dragons. I played a couple other modules, but not Dungeons and Dragons based ones.
Gotcha. All right. So coming back into it, getting that rust off. But yeah, so we're all here today to just talk about what we would like to see in Dungeons and Dragons. It is all over the place right now in the community. Does anybody want to hit that first point out the gate?
Well, I prepared a long. No.
Who would prepare a list of
I
points?
know, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who puts prior thought into something like this.
Who would come to a podcast prepared?
Yeah.
I don't know. Not me. But
Foolish.
so the thing is that they just recently announced that there's going to be a new version of Dungeons and Dragons. It's either going to be 5.5 or 6th edition.
Mm-hmm.
And with some of the rules that have come out from Tasha's and Xanathar's, some of the rule changes, some of the new classes, everything is leading towards probably going to be, there's going to be another version of the game. Some people think that they might go a little bit further than the rules that were in Tasha's, which were kind of trying to open up a little bit and not be, I guess, as confining. I didn't really think that they were that great. I didn't think that they were really that necessary, that change, because I kind of thought, the games are just guidelines. You can do what you want anyway.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Spoken by
So
a good
yeah,
wizard,
that's yeah. So that's why we're talking about we're talking about the next edition and what is going to happen with it. And I played predominantly a lot of 3 and 3.5. I've since played a lot of 5.
Yes.
And I do love 5th edition. I think 5th edition is great. And, it streamlined it and it made it easier for people to play, and it got a lot more people involved. It made the game more popular than it's ever been, without a doubt.
Yeah.
But there are things that I do miss about the older versions. The older versions offered you a lot in the way of armor and feats and weapons and all sorts of things that 5th edition is really kind of lacking on, and that's something that I would hope to see.
Yeah, I think you hit a good point there. Just the aspect of, because 5e was meant to bring in all of these new beginning players, it was time to kind of reset the playing field. They couldn't go in depth with, hey, here's this armor, here's these feats, here's all this. Like, there was like almost what felt like 25 pages of feats. I am 100% exaggerating for 3.5. But when it got to the descriptions aspect of it for those feats, yeah, that's how long that book was.
Yeah.
It's 25 pages of going into detail of what this feat does, what this does, and that was monotonous for anybody to come into. And you're trying to explain that, people get lost real quick. So I think 5e did a really good aspect of that.
Yeah, and as a somebody that dungeon, like, I DM quite a bit. I didn't used to. I used to play a lot, and now I've kind of gotten into where, like, I think I DM more than I play. But I've seen it in action. Like, I know there were people that if I had tried to get them to play 3 or 3.5, they would have been like,
oh yeah, never would.
No way.
Yeah,
like, it's just too much. It's way too complicated, and it took forever. If you wanted to sit down and play a game, just with your friends, you didn't plan it. It would take hours and hours and hours to make your characters.
Yeah.
Especially if you were playing at a higher level,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's different if you start at first level, but if you're playing 10th, 15th level or whatever for like a one shot, I mean, you had so many options. And I'm not saying you need to bring all of that back, but it would be cool to have some of that back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To
go back to what you were saying before, Neil, about like there were 25 pages of feats in 3.5, and that was just in the core like, player's handbook.
Yeah.
And those had something that doesn't exist in 5th edition. Is those had there were trees. There were trees of feats where you needed to have a specific feat. And then if you had that feat, you could do another feat that did something better, and then you could have another feat that did something better.
Yes.
Yeah, and power attack, cleave, greater cleave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those aren't in 5th edition. And and like a thing with 5th edition is that there's not a lot of opportunity to bring feats into a character, because the only time that you ever really get to put feats onto a character is every 4 levels you can pick a feat or an ability. And I feel like that's something that they could change like pretty easily. Like basically, like the simplest way to change that is every 5 levels you have the option to add a feat.
Yeah.
Make that a rule. Make that a standard rule. Every 5 levels you get a feat.
Yeah.
Because then more people would use them. I've got a character now that has no feats. I had a character before them that had 1 feat that I gave them at level 12. Because I wanted the ability score increases. I didn't want to add feats, and it's like the feats are
so
fine,
I think
like they there's not and increasing the amount of feats that there are, and like varying them up a bit would be great too, because like I remember looking at them and I'm like, there's like 2 feats that I could take on this specific character that I would want, and the rest of them are like not applicable to my character at all.
Yeah.
So it's like if they had more variety of like what they did, and it would be cool.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of that is actually coming from something that because Wizards is Hasbro, and they've done this before where they put, and I've complained about it before, but instead of having Monster Manual 2, we will get 3 or 4 different books that'll each have like 5 or 6 new monsters in them. So that you have to go and scoop them all up, so that you have all those new monsters. instead of having just the actual Monster Manual 2. And it's been how many years since we've had 5th edition? We don't have a second Dungeon Master's Guide.
Yeah.
The Advanced Dungeon Master's Guide. Like, come on.
Yeah, no, and I think like one of the cool aspects. I really hope they go, just 5.5, just base. I'll put it out there because I think there's a lot of great things that this has built that a new version will take away from. So I think the feat system is actually really good in this.
Yeah.
There just needs to be more of them.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
you speak that you have to take an ability score improvement or a feat, but the way that they got around that is you can take many feats that give you an ability score improvement.
Yeah, I was going to comment because that is something that was, I don't think existed. I could be wrong in the earlier versions. It was either you took an ability score or you took an increase in your ability score or you got a feat.
Yeah.
There was no mix and match. And at least in 5th edition, there are some where it's like, oh yeah, this allows you to carry more than normal, but you also gain a +1 to your strength.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, it's cool.
Yeah. But there isn't many of them. There's a couple of them and that's it. And granted, it's it's not too bad. Everybody usually hits their ability score cap for their main ability, unless you're going out and getting one of the books or anything like that, which all should be used. I think that is, if somebody wants to do a side quest to get an ability score improvement as the DM, you should do that. That promotes feats in the game. It promotes more diverse characters, but that's a whole different aspect. I think just developing more of the system that they have, so giving more feats, giving more spells, which they're good with spells. I will say each book they put out, they usually add more spells, but where's there been more feats? You know what I mean? Pretty much as long as you have the player's handbook, you have all of the feats.
Well, a lot of people are complaining about even the amount of spells. Just from some of the videos I was watching, I saw people were complaining about the magic, and they were saying that basically your other spellcasters are just like weaker versions of, they're like weaker versions of wizards and sorcerers.
Yes,
like
it's not a diverse spell grouping, I should say. You know what I mean? There isn't 3.5. If you were a cleric, you had a specific set of spells that nobody else can touch. If you know what I mean? Where here, there is a lot of overlap. You know what I mean? What we just encountered the other day when we were doing our character sheets for the game that we play. Like here, I'm a paladin, and I just got 4th level spells, and I was like, hey, I can finally do banishment. I've been able to do that since fucking level 5.
I'll say, because for that same game, Steve, what is your newest character? What is his class?
Cleric.
He's a cleric, and I play a sorcerer in that. And Neil went through. Was like, "Oh, I got this new spell. I have this spell and this spell." And between Steve and myself, we're like, we could already do all of these spells.
Yep.
On our own.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The only unique thing you get as a paladin is smites. That's like, and people complain all over the place when a paladin is, smite heavy or something like that. You should use your utility. And I was like, well, out of all of the classes, you're a tank. You are a true tank. You can survive yourself. You can make everything through. You can take hits. But when it comes to utility, anybody else besides like the saves here, maybe you're gonna throw an Aura of Courage out or something along those lines. But even then, it takes away from your DPS. It takes away from what you're gonna deal in combat. Are you gonna keep the threat of the creature, or are you not? You know what I mean? It's one of those tough calls, but it's because those spells are between everything. Like there's nothing unique. You know what I mean? There's not multiple paths of uniqueness, is what I should say.
Yeah, I mean, even like the Artificer was the newest class to be made, and the Artificer is cool.
Yeah.
It has some cool things that it can do, but like their spell list is just like you're basically like just a low level wizard.
Yep.
Like there's nothing really special about their spells. It's what they can make and what they can infuse with magic is cool, but they don't have like their own set of magic. And I mean, that's kind of something that we were talking about, like when we want to do for Dracuva with the Rune Cutter, is that they're going to have like their own set of magic. Like,
Yeah, nobody else is going to have that set of magic.
Right.
Exactly.
You have to be that class to have that magic.
Exactly. So it's like, it's not so much so like if you play this and I play this, we're gonna have this much overlap with these characters. You have, if you're this character, you can do things that no one else in your party is gonna be able to do.
Yeah.
Right, and that's one of the things they think that in also in kind of streamlining 5th edition, that maybe some of the classes kind of blurred a little bit.
Yeah.
Where, and then like even like the subclasses now are basically like, oh well, I'm gonna take something I like from the sorcerer and give it to the monk.
Yeah.
Or something that I thought was cool for the wizard and give it to the fighter.
Well, that's again to keep it all streamlined, so people don't have to multi-class. That's the whole aspect of those classes.
I know, but that's I guess that's just part of my bigger complaint about like I don't think Wizards needs to like build the game that way, or like corral us towards that point, because it's like the options were always there to do things. Like if you had like I said before, if you had a character that needed a better wisdom score, a better charisma score, have them going on a mission for some item that gives it to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have a game of make believe in front of you.
Yeah.
You know, like
do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want, and people are like, "Oh, well, you know, my ranger doesn't get to do this." Well, that's a problem at your table. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
no, I agree.
I just don't agree with like we have to write it in so that everybody can just have +4 to everything, and you can do whatever you want. And it's like, you know.
Yeah, because of the way that they've worded this stuff, though, I don't think that we're going to get massive changes like that. I do think that this is going to be a 5.5 update coming in 2024 instead of a 6.0, because if they were doing a 6.0, it would probably mean an overhaul like that, where it's like the sorcerer can only do this, the barbarian can only do this, the rogue can only do this, and then like
I think
clean slate start over, and it's like maybe there's some elements that you can bring your 5th edition stuff up to 6, but because they're talking about like everything's backwards compatible, I don't think that it's going to be a 6.0. I think it's just going to be a 5.5, which is fine. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with them taking all of the stuff that they've already created, putting it all together, and like improving everything as a whole. But like, I don't think they're going to make any massive, like I don't think they're going to make like sweeping changes to the entire system until they do a 6th edition, which probably isn't going to come for another, 5 years.
You know, I think I'm probably going to have to back you up on that one, because one of the other things they did when they did this release, that there's going to be another edition or whatever, is they talked about that they're going to release the Dungeon Master Guide, the Player's Handbook, and then there's like, what is it? It's like Mordenkainen's tome of
multiverse, Monsters
of the Multiverse, right? And it's basically Volo's and Xanathar's and Tasha's like all put together.
It's everything. It's not even them. It's not even the monsters. It's also the player races. Like they have all the player races,
right?
All
but it's like
all together.
This is going to be some big new release, but it's all shit we already have.
Yep. It's all just
yeah.
They're saying that they made improvements to things. They changed some stuff around about like how.
Well, they also said they put all new artwork in there, right? They also said they put all new artwork in there, but okay, what's all right? Like, don't get me wrong, I love seeing cool artwork, and
but I'm not trying to buy an art book.
Yeah,
but if it's mechanically the same thing,
what is
know?
I'm not gonna go out and
like it's little recompense for the people that have already sat there and bought everything. Like before the Artificer was in Tasha's, you had to go and get the Eberron book to get the Artificer, and so I have the Eberron book, and now I have Tasha's.
Yep.
So it's like that's the kind of stuff they did. They did it to Star Wars when Wizards had Star Wars. They did the exact same thing. And it's like you get one little book for this, one little book for that, instead of here's a compendium.
Exactly. I was going to say, is it a new edition, or is it a compendium of all the things you've released?
Yeah,
right.
That's exactly it. But so I guess if you could have one change, one thing that's definitely going to happen, what is it going to be? Like my aspect is I would almost wish that I don't need new classes. I don't need new races. I need more monsters, more spells, more feats. I need the smaller aspects of it. Like, give me that. Like, yeah, I can sit there. I do it for a business perspective, and I make all of that shit anyway. But if you, I feel like, as wizards, want to keep the people who are there, keep the people that you have, keep them playing this, fucking, I think, go out and make a bunch of, here's a book on feats, you know, here, like, and flavor it to an area in the Sword Coast, or
Well,
you know what I mean.
They've
Like,
done such a good job at pulling in all these new people to this game, right? But if you make it that the aspects of the game are finite, right? If you don't encourage people to go outside of your publishing, or to seek out third party stuff, or to homebrew their own things, then it's finite. They're gonna get to a point where they've done everything and they're not gonna want to play anymore.
yep,
You know, or it's gonna get tiring because it's this same old thing over and over.
Yep.
So whereas like 3 and 3.5 were like overly clunky because they just had so much, now you have this sleek, streamlined, easy to play game. Give us something. Give us half of what we had,
yeah,
and it'll last for another several years.
yeah.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, but that would be at least my pull away. My biggest thing, you know, I don't think they've put out too much new stuff, so there's no way it's going to be a new system. It wouldn't make sense because the amount of backpedaling they would have to do to make everything also backwards compatible. I don't see that. 5.5, 100%. Yeah, I think you would have saw a 4.5 if 4E did better. You know what I mean? They just couldn't fix it. They couldn't fix it with a quality of life improvement for the game. You know what I mean? That would have taken multiple aspects to fix, and that's why they were like, forget it. We're going to make a new system. 5E is doing well. 5E is one of the best tabletop RPG systems you are going to get that fits the aspect of beginner to expert, you know, in the playstyle, because they do mention it's very easy to create stuff for it. It's very easy to homebrew your own stuff. You don't need to be a master of statistics to be able to understand how the mathematics of the game works. It's very simple. So my biggest thing is just freaking give, as a person who also loves lore, you can fit in so much lore into your game now with this atmosphere. If you gave more feats, you gave more spells, you developed more items, you developed how things are crafted. Do you understand? Like, everybody here who plays Dungeons and Dragons should understand how do you guys derive a magic item and what it's worth? Because there is no real aspect of it in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. 3.5, it would give you the math down to the copper piece.
Oh, there was also the whole, you could spend so much time and experience to create
Make a
magic
scroll,
items.
make an magic
You know,
item.
and like
Yeah.
that's something obviously like a lot of people play Milestone, like we play Milestone.
Yeah.
So sometimes like the experience based things don't transfer over, you know, like it just like there's some of the things involved in like the deck of many things, you
Yeah.
know, that are, oh, you gain X amount of experience or you lose X amount of experience. But if you're playing Milestone, it doesn't really affect you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can
So-
figure out other ways. There's
Right.
It's easy
But-
to.
But
to,
there
you
was
know,
just
do that.
there was just more options for you. I felt like there was a better there was a good follower system. There was a system for like having your base of operations, for being a leader. You know, there was a lot of things that are kind of being piecemealed into 5th edition, or now there's going to be this 5.5 that we had before.
Yeah.
You know, and I think their goal was to be vastly different from 3.5, which is what they did with 4, but it was like they went too far one way.
Yeah.
You know, so then they pulled it back into 5th, and now it's like, I don't know. I don't know if it's time for a new version. I don't think that they really are going to do a new version.
Even if it was time for a new version, it's such a 5th edition is so huge that them going on to 6th would be.
You have
insane.
other publishing parties now making books for 5th edition.
Yeah.
Like one of our favorite ones that we found, Free League. Their Simba Room is now coming to 5th edition.
Yeah.
So I think
Well,
they'd
that's
be
something-
stupid to leave it now.
Well, I think too is that if they go to a 6th edition, do you think there's going to be an open game license?
I don't know. That
I don't think so.
I don't know, because part of it, they make so much more money on it because of the DMs Guild, because people now pay them to be able to use certain aspects, and you can't have that. You could still continue DMs Guild in 6th edition, even if it wasn't an open gaming license, but it wouldn't be as lucrative unless you had an open gaming license, where these people could make money not just through the DMs Guild, but also of their own fruition. But then if they wanted to make something based off of the lithids, now they do it. But that, you know what that means is you start making your own custom IP as Wizards. You develop that more. You get more of that, because then that means, hey, more people are going to want to put it into the DMs Guild. We do have this free licensing, but now more people want to do DMs Guild. But anyway, Cody, what would be your number one improvement? Biggest thing you would want to see?
Paid time off for Dungeon Masters.
Yeah, we're making a Dungeon Master union.
Yeah,
the link will be below.
I need at least I need to see some sort of a Dungeon Master therapist so I can vent about my players, my parties.
They just didn't get this simple crap.
They stared at the well for 3 hours.
Yeah.
It was only 2 hours. And I refuse to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Eh?
I think for me, I would like to see. I mean, I've already kind of said I want to see more of the feats and the weapons and stuff like that. Really, I would love to see another Dungeon Master guide.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be dope, with some new artifacts in it.
Yeah.
You know, they've been trying to, like I said, been trying to piecemeal things in the other editions, like puzzles and stuff like that. Like, just give us an advanced Dungeon Master guide. You know, give us some tables for making traps and things like that. That would really help. That'd be cool.
That'd be nice.
And
so that'd be your big piece, yeah.
I think that'd probably be my big piece. And then the other thing is, like, I don't need new classes and stuff because, like you said, like the classes are still pretty good. But I would like to see maybe a difference. Like we were talking before about feats for like your combat feats versus your RP feats.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can make a choice where it's like, yeah, this is really going to improve like my DPS or whatever, or this is just going to be fun to play.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know, and sometimes it's like, what's the decision? You know, I guess it depends on your style of play and your group, but I don't know. I just think it would be nice to maybe have something like even like a flaw system where if you took a flaw, you get to take 2 feats, so then you could take one that was more martial and one that was more roleplay based. Yeah, you know, and then you have a feat,
2 roleplay based ones,
right? Or you and then that feat is also, or that flaw that you would take would also be something that would help produce roleplay.
Make me worse in combat, but I can roleplay better.
Or it could be something, that would make you bad at interacting with people. You know, it could be anything.
True.
Yeah,
it's just called being me.
Yeah,
but no, and I mean, like, to hit on that, that's what many other creators are doing for their systems. They're doing this boons and flaws, or that aspect of, hey, here's some positives, but don't forget to take some negatives. Call of Cthulhu's been doing that for a long time. This other game that we played, Paleo Mythic, that's been doing it.
Paleo Mythic did a really good job of balancing the flaws too.
Yeah, and I remember just
the
from
One Ring both had it.
Yeah, the Lord of the Rings, the old D6 Lord of the Rings that I love was
that
was the
had
same
it.
way. Yeah, it was, you took a flaw and you got 2 feats.
I don't know if it's because Wizards doesn't want to. They want to keep with their own. They don't want to take from everybody else, and that was created because nobody else wanted to be Wizards. Possibly, but also in an aspect, develop it a little bit. Bring it to the table. Brainstorm with it at Wizards. Hopefully they are. You know what I mean? How can we do this and keep it Wizards? Fine, I'm good with that, but you're sticking in the mud in one aspect because nothing's changed for feats and ability improvements since the beginning.
Yeah.
You know?
Watch what you do with them fingers, man.
I'll do whatever I want with these fingers. Yeah. Steve, what is your big improvement?
Do we want to do me or do we want to do Sean? Because we were joking about people making lists before, and I have my whole big
Oh,
list.
yeah, he's got a big list then.
He's
All
got
right,
about 3 hours worth of
The
content.
99 thesis of Steven.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
we're gonna do Sean. Then this is gonna be the end of the YouTube. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
you can follow Steve's aspect
We're
in the
gonna
next
wrap it up
episode.
after Sean. Yeah.
Well, I mean, because I've
It's
got
just
a lot
a
of
video
things,
of Steve ranting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, like, because I've got a bunch of points here that we could probably all talk about. Like,
Sure. I also have a question I would like to phrase to the group as
Yeah,
at the end of
sure.
mine.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right,
Sean,
let's
let's go into yours then. What do you think is that one improvement that you would like to see?
I feel like I'm just repeating what everyone else has said at this point, but it's
That's what
absolutely
happens
gotta
when you
be-
go last.
It's that's why we let Steve go
Yeah,
last.
exactly.
But it's absolutely they need to go expand off the feats. I would love to see them expand more on the weapons and armor as well. Just because,
Yeah.
like, I know from one of the games that we played, Neil, where you had to work with Cody to go backwards and get the buckler because they don't have a buckler anymore.
They don't
Yeah.
have a goddamn
Or-
buckler. Who doesn't have a buckler?
or-
Anyway, whatever.
Or like, I think every one of my weapons in one of the campaigns that we play is homebrewed because they're I don't know, they're just so finite in their weapons.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Oh, like, it's now a +1, but give me a little flavor.
Yeah, that's like a whole thing. Like 3.5 was great for that. You had tables. This is how the construction
Absolutely.
works for it. This is everything. Doesn't matter what item it was. It could be a weapon, armor, a ring, a freaking.
Well,
I
then
don't
they got
know,
even
you know?
to the point of where everything had a hardness, had
Yeah.
its own AC. You
Yeah.
know, like
Like, don't get me wrong. We don't need to go that far. I can use it. I
No.
can figure that out on my own if it's ever caught to it. You know, not too many people are going out like, I'm gonna sunder your weapon. No, everybody's like, here, I'm just gonna tag you. So I get that if you don't want to go that far with this system because you're not trying to make it that in depth, right? But
Because I mean, even then with that, it rolls back to the DM can do what the DM wants for his world or their world. I mean, just the difference between Cody and Neil when they DM. Cody lets you do whatever you want with no repercussions.
I let
And
you.
Neil,
I let you.
yeah.
and Neil
I let you do
has a
whatever you
very-
want. There's just a lot of repercussions.
Exactly.
I am heavy-handed.
like
Neil just has more immediate repercussions.
yes,
That's
exactly.
true. That's
I
true.
have
These play
repercussions
out
that are going to be drawn out
over time. It usually
Yeah.
ends up with someone coming back from your history to kill you.
Yes.
Where Neil's are like, for example, we were playing Strahd. My character is a barbarian. He often rages, as one would do as a barbarian. And he was raging, and he just kept hitting the thing that he was fighting. And Neil was like, "All right, I need you to roll a d6." I rolled the d6, and it chipped my weapon.
Yeah,
So I had to roll with disadvantage until I could find either replace it or fix it.
I totally forgot I did that.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
'cause
I
he
was a
just
barbarian.
Pummeling something. He was just pummeling something with his axe. I can't even remember what it was, but it was a hard object, and I was
It's
like, "That's
fair.
gonna damage." I was like, "That's gonna damage your weapon." I was
Yeah,
like,
that's fair.
"There's no doubt."
So while you don't necessarily need to go back to everything has a hardness, everything has its own everything. Like it could be something as simple as roll a d6.
yeah,
One of these
just-
numbers is a break. One of these numbers is nothing.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like they they don't actually have to like hold everybody's hands, but they could at least like. I don't think there's a language in there that like if you read a lot of things like rules as
Oh, it's
written,
just-
that yeah,
That's it.
like you need to read these books like the old wizard told me.
Yes.
The old wizard told
from
Frank and I.
Woodstock.
Yeah, they told Frank and I these are just guidelines. Like
Exactly.
they're just guidelines. They're the fucking the safety rails on your voyage into your world.
Yeah.
That's it. You know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, that's a good point. All right, Steve.
Hold on. I have a question phrase
okay.
first before we get to the 99 theses of
thesis
Steve.
Yes.
Yes.
Moriarty.
I thought of it as Steve was going off on one of his points earlier, talking about how things should be specific for the rogue can only do this, the wizard can only do this. If you were to see a 6th edition, would you like to see it go back more towards where whatever if you're chaotic neutral or if you're good, would you like to see it go back to where those can easily change favor with whatever patron you have or whatever casting?
One of the points that I have about what they could change in this system is removing alignments, because I don't think that they're necessary anymore.
Because I was going to say, I think at this point, at least, they're just a guideline to how to roleplay your character. At this point, there's no real repercussions if you don't do something.
Yeah, they're kind of a guideline, but I feel like a character's background is more of a guideline for how to play themselves, because it sort of tells where they came from versus like alignment is like, because alignment is also like it's just based on the person. Like what's good for one person, it may not be good for another, but hey, because I think that this is good, it's good, you know. It's I honestly think that alignment should be removed, except for like mechanical purposes. Like in the home game that we play right now, where we're going up against a bunch of rakshasas that can shapeshift into other people. Rakshasas are demons. Demons are always evil for the purposes of like detect good and evil, or sensing evil presences or sensing good presences. Creatures that are born from the forces of evil or good specifically should have those alignments. Anything else, anything that naturally exists in the world, shouldn't have an alignment, and that includes player characters, because it kind of limits things.
Whew.
I disagree.
I've had it be where I wanted to play as a character in a campaign, and someone was like, "Well, what's their alignment?" They're like, "I love your character. Your character's great. What's their alignment?" And I was like, "They're neutral evil." I'm like, "Oh, they can't be evil. I can't have an evil character in my party." And I'm like, "They're not like a villain. This character isn't a villain. They just are a selfish asshole. That's why they're neutral evil." They're like, "No, they have to be pure neutral. They can't be evil." I'm like, "Then that's not the character." If we're going by alignments, like based on what I believe the neutral evil alignment is, like someone who is just selfish and doesn't really care about other people is neutral evil, because they're selfish, but they're not doing it. They're not like some kind of like crazy person that's trying to cause a bunch of mayhem. They're not somebody that's scheming to like screw over people. They just don't give a shit about other people, and will throw them under the bus to save their own skin. That's what makes them evil. And I've had people be like, "No, you can't play that character if you're going to play them that way." And it's like, well, then I'm not playing that character, because that's how they are. And it's
I just wouldn't play in that game.
Yeah, I was going to say that to me, that seems like an issue with
that's a DM issue.
Yeah. But it's like, but like I've heard a ton of stories too about like people like basing stuff off of like people who are like, "I'm a lawful good paladin, but I'm gonna like kill a bunch of innocent people to get to where I need to go," and it's like, you don't.
That happened. That used to happen in the older versions. There was a game I played where a friend of ours, he was a lawful good paladin, and he started a fire in a bar, and a bunch of people got killed in the fire, and we were like, "You lost your powers." Like,
so that's what I mean. Is like, do we go back to something where the alignments actually have some sort of meaning? Like,
so
I think you lose a lot of RP.
So here's my aspect on this, and I think this would actually please a lot of people. I think you need alignments. I don't think you can get rid of them. But I don't think there is any need to go in depth with alignments. I think there's good, neutral, and evil. Baselines. Good people can still do bad things, but in heart they're still good. Neutral people have no care to what the order is. They do whatever really benefits them. And your evil people are out for themselves. They are just, they're trying to grow their own power. They don't care how it hurts somebody else. Those are your three baselines. Now, is there points where it's going to overlap? Of course, but you don't need to specify them. Like somebody who is of a good being, they can still go out and slay somebody they shouldn't have. Granted, is there going to be repercussions? Is there going to be aspects that should hurt their character? Sure, but I also believe that what your alignment is should be a shifting thing. Your character should change and in the course of the game. There's no doubt about it. That
Absolutely.
there's going to be things that, maybe
Well,
you
and
are a lawful good paladin that you just saw this massacre go on. Are you going to trust your religion still? Are you going to is your character going to change? Are they now going to, that's going to be aspects of it. And it is going to be aspects of change in gameplay mechanics, but then Wizards should give something for that. There should be an aspect of, hey, this is what happens when a paladin loses their order. They don't lose all of their powers, because some of that should be innate. As much as it's a divine thing, it should be, I've done this for so many years. It's like a being in the Feywild, right? Just because they leave the Feywild, they don't lose their power. They may not be as potent. But I think that's an aspect. Everybody looks at it so finite. Like, this is what you have to be if you are good. This is what you have to be if you're evil, and that's not the case.
Well,
That's-
and I think
not
that
it.
sometimes too people played it like in the older editions, like you had to pick your alignment. It was like, and that's how you had to play your character.
Yeah.
Instead of like just playing your character and then figuring out what your alignment is.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And some people are like, oh, I was always chaotic good, because I was like, ultimately I'm trying to do the right thing, but how I get there, like, I don't follow the rules to get there. I like to shake things up.
Yeah, the
You know,
ends
I'll do
justify the
something-
means.
Right, I'll do something unexpected, just to see what happens, like whatever. So I was like, I used to do chaotic good a lot, but some people used to take it like very seriously. And just for like somebody that writes stories, like storytelling, like you can be a flawed person and still be good. You can be a bad person and still have something redeeming about you. Still have like one quality about you that is good.
That's good character development.
Absolutely.
That's
So,
how you make
I
a
don't know.
good character.
I don't know that needs to be again. I don't know that's something that needs to be spelled out for us in Dungeons and Dragons, but even mechanically, right? Like detect good and evil or whatever. Just change it. If you're gonna have it so that fiends are always evil, right? So detect fiend, detect celestial. Like if that's how you're gonna go about it, if you're gonna get rid of the whole alignment thing.
Yeah, it's you have to categorize it somewhere, and that's all good and evil does. Detect good and evil. That's all it is. It uses the alignment good and evil, but you're detecting celestial, you're detecting fiend. Like that's really all it is. Even when mine is detect evil, I don't detect anybody who's of an evil alignment. I detect anybody who is what is it? Undead, celestial, or fiend.
Yeah.
That's what my detection does. Yes, it says detect good or whatever the hell it is, or find sense. That's what it is. That's what they changed it to.
This is where I introduced my homebrew spell of detect stuff.
Yes, detect things.
I sense something from that thing.
Yes, it is something. But
There's something about that thing over there.
Steve, I know you have this huge list, and I think we could talk about this forever. So what I'm going to want you to do, Steve, is give me 2 things.
I'll
10
give you
things.
You know what? I'll give you one. I'll give you one because I think that there is one that I can bring up that we haven't really talked about. I think that the book that this updated version should have better rewards for players who roleplay and reduce the rewards for combat. They should make combat and role-playing equally as important as one another. Because currently, the way that the game works is there is a system for gaining experience points through combat, and as far as I know, I could be wrong, there isn't one for gaining experience for skill checks or doing other role-play things. And if they were to add a system...
Milestone, baby. Milestone.
Milestone, yes. But for people who want to play with experience, for people who are playing with experience points, like there's no real way to codify milestone. Like that. If
that's honestly why I got rid of it. That's why I don't do it, because I don't think I never thought it was that fair.
Right.
especially if you get to the point where it's like, oh, like, well, this person actually slew the beast. Well, okay, well, this person also hit it like 20 times. Oh no, this person slew it, so they get the experience.
Yeah.
Like, I remember how things used to be, and I never really appreciated it. And then, yeah, I don't know how to sit there and say, oh, well, you killed 17 goblins, Jimmy, so that's X amount of XP. But
Yeah.
you just did this awesome story arc,
Yeah.
Steve, and you accomplished all these things like for your character, but like you didn't lift a sword.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what to do for you.
Because we keep talking about how D&D is like sort of moving more towards a role play heavy game and less of the war game that it used to be. And it's like there's no way to, like, the milestone system is a way to reward it, but there's no way to codify that. There's no way to say like,
so in Dungeons and Dragons, it has been there since at least 3. It is never mentioned any more than like a paragraph.
Yeah.
And it is never given numbers more than, as the DM, this is up to your discretion.
Yeah.
You can award experience points for things.
Right.
They also tried to give something more, which I think is actually just, as a whole, players of and dungeon masters of 5th edition do not do, is inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was going to
inspiration, and they don't give a quantified measure of, hey, you completed this skill check, here's this much experience. It is on the DM to figure that out.
Right.
Frank hates me because I don't do inspiration.
I also hate you because you
But
don't do it.
you have done inspiration.
I do. I just don't do it, I guess, enough.
It's one of those, it's that old style mentality. You're now playing with a new mechanic that has not been there.
Yeah.
You're not.
Yeah, because I used to just be like
often.
50 extra for this person because they did a good job.
So that is the old style of rewarding RP. You would be like, all right, that was really good. In your head, you're doing the math as an expert dungeon master. You're saying, hey, that's a really good thing. Normal encounters do this, and this. So here's this much experience. In the grand scheme, that's the breakdown. I do agree, Steve. Should there be, like, instead of giving a book of Tasha's about, hey, you can make whatever ability scores, do, hey, a skill check of this level, maybe somebody solved this thing with at a better means. This is what you should quantify the experience for.
Yeah,
I think that would do wonders.
Yeah, because something that you
Steve.
said in what you were saying about talking about Cody being like, oh, well, you could give out stuff, is that you called him an expert dungeon master. And the ruling for this, the reason why I would want this in the book is not for people like Cody, but it's for people who are just getting into the game who don't know how to do that.
Yeah. And that was going to be the point I was going to bring up, is I was going to say, because rules as written, if somebody just picks up the book and reads it, front to back,
they'll find it.
They'll find things. Yeah, they'll find things, but
it'll be a paragraph long and it won't be explained.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas everything else has challenge ratings and experience points to go with the challenge ratings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like that. And I knew that paragraph was in there. I wasn't sure if there was more than that paragraph, and I'm glad to know that I'm right that there isn't more than that paragraph.
That's about it.
But there is a way to codify. There should be a way to codify.
And I'm glad to know that I'm right.
Because you could even say, like, if set CRs for your challenges. If the CR is 10 or less, then you grant this much experience. If it's between 10 and 20, grant this much. If it's 20 to 30, grant this much. If it's more than 30, grant this much. That's all they have to put in the book.
So I will say, sorry to cut you off, it's right in that aspect of, there is actually 5e, I need to stand corrected, because somebody can call me out if they go into the Dungeon Masters, about a day's journey. They talk about the overarching aspect of how much experience you should get from a day's journey, and that it should come from environment, encounters, and just regular shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
So it's talked about, but in the sense of what else is talked about, it's the equivalent of a paragraph. That is what I'll say on that.
It's also like trying to put 100 pounds of something into a 10-pound bag.
But
right?
that's why you should make a secondary Dungeon Master book. That's really what it should be.
that adventuring day total is great when you want to, like, I've used it before for coming up with modules.
Yes.
When I sit there and I go, I want to figure out how many wolves I can send at my party. My 3rd level party is going to be coming through this swamp. How many wolves can I send at them? Well, they just traversed the mountains to get here, so that costs them X amount of XP. And you can break it all down, and that's fine. But you're also confining everything, and you're also planning everything out. And that is like, if you want to call me expert DM, that's the first thing I want to avoid is planning everything all the way out. Yeah. Because you never know what's going to happen. And you could sit there and say, oh, yeah, well, I've only planned for this adventure, and this is all I planned for the day, and I'm a new DM, and then my party wants to do something completely different, and they do a good job, or they do something incredible, and then I'm like, well, I don't even know how to reward this person.
Yeah, but that all comes down with, that's the idea of experience in anything. So you talk to an experienced lumberjack, for the lack of a better, forester, right? They'll tell you all the mathematics that they need. Well, they won't say it in mathematics. They'll tell you exactly what they need to do to drop a tree in a certain area. Somebody who's training you in that is going to break it all down in the mathematics that you do naturally. So you may not be able to give them, hey, I need to cut this tree exactly 5 inches in and have, my 60 degree, 40 degree hinge, because you're just naturally, it's a tree this size. I need to cut it about yay big and cut it from the back. That's the same aspect with Dungeons and Dragons. If you look at it, rules written, I wish they would write a whole chapter about, hey, this is how we mechanically have to present things to you to make it make sense. After you understand and grasp this, take it with a grain of salt. Take it with, this is your overarching aspect. Don't keep to it. But, like, if you're having problems, remember this is probably why.
Yeah, and that's something that we've tried to do too, for not to like humble brag, but because we've come from that, we've been trying to make our modules and things so that it's like, hey, here's this world, here's this lore, here's this story, but all the whole while we're explaining things to you, we're like, feel free to change this if you need to. If this doesn't work for you or your party, you can do something different.
Yeah,
well, and that's a language that wasn't ever there.
No.
When I look as a person who has read a lot of wizard stuff, when I look at least the tabletop totality stuff, is you guys have done a really good job of making it like, here is this thing, take it, use it how you want. Here, this is, if you want to use this as a basic example for what you want to put in your game, use this shell, use the shell of it and apply it to your game, change it, put a new skin on it. Make it fit your game, but here's something to help you out.
Yeah, and that's ultimately, I mean, speaking for myself, that was my goal, to be like, if you enjoy the story and you enjoy the setting and you want to play it through, you can.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But if you would also like to just pick and choose from it, you also can do that.
You just want this chapter, this encounter from a module we did, take it. If it fits in your world, it fits.
You just want the monster. Take the, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. Take the battle map.
Or if you wanted a small acid gnome.
Take it.
Right.
Take the acid gnome.
Right.
Everyone
Still our
can use
bestseller.
Yeah. You're welcome.
For
You're
all those people who follow us, Getry's Grimoire was created based off of Sean's acid gnome from a run we did in Waterdeep. It was a great time.
He's our guest.
He was a torture gnome. He was a torture gnome, and I was a torture
dirty little torture gnome.
And I would sack tap people with my tail while he's burning them with acid. And there was nothing more just in the world.
And I was a cop. That was their roommate.
Well, hold on. No, the best part about your cop is
captain.
Yeah, but captains are lower than sergeants, so you know.
I mean,
I know this now.
Irrelevant.
I know this now. Yeah,
is that there could be a buddy cop movie of my character and Neil's character, and Cody's cop wouldn't even be involved.
Well, it would be like the captain that we just have to like.
I don't think so.
Hey, Cap, this is what we're doing. Great work, boys.
I don't even think it would be that. I think it would be like you see him in the background of a shot, like
Well, he's talking to
He's
the rest of the cops.
What about
but we're,
when we
like, too
investigated
cool.
he
we
probably like
investigated
tripped
that whole
over
murder house
something.
together,
That's true.
and that was epic.
I investigated that murder house.
Yeah.
You weren't even in
Yeah.
No, I put
You weren't even in the murder house.
in a good buddy
Yeah.
cop movie, though, there needs to be a scene where one of the buddy cops threatens to resign and throws his gun and badge down on the table.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
It was
That's-
Getry.
Yeah. Here's
When
my
he-
bucket of acid and my badge. I'm out.
Hey,
I'm not
they
identifying
believed-
magic items for you anymore.
Yeah.
They believed in my badge more than they believed Cody's character's
That's
badge.
true, which is amazing. Deception, baby. But
Topic that I brought up originally about the experience. In this, so in addition to doing the experience for skill based stuff, they could also possibly lower the experience that you gain for combat to sort of even them out. And if people are against that, if there are people that play D&D just a power game. There are people that there's some people that want to play it for role playing. There's
just
some
for
people
the
that want to play it.
gains.
There's some people that want to play it to fight.
Yeah.
And the answer to that is go back. Like 5th edition is still there. You can play 5.5 is more about role playing. 5th edition is more about the combat.
If
If you wanna
5.5
get-
was
if you
all
wanna-
about role playing, I would play 5.5 only.
If you want to gain,
People aren't even happy with 5th edition combat. They complain about 5th edition combat.
People
they can
just
go
are
back to
never
4th.
happy.
I don't. Yeah,
I know that's the thing is people are always going to complain.
Did
you know?
you just say go back to 4th for combat?
Oh man.
Wow,
You guys let him
3.5,
on the
baby.
podcast, and he talks about 4E.
3.5 baby.
Now we're canceled by everybody.
Why do you
Yeah.
think I didn't say I played 4E before?
Oh, I know. I know. You
I
hit
played
that
it
one.
once, and I just remember that it's a lot of weird combat stuff.
weird
But yeah,
combat.
it's very weird.
To go off
Um,
Steve's point though, because I don't think any of you ever played a campaign I've DM'd, so you don't know this, but I'm always an RP heavy DM.
I didn't know you
like
could read.
I actually don't. I only point to the pictures. I hold up the book and I point to the picture. I'm like,
This
this
attacks you.
is this is this.
Everybody else is reading the.
This thing
They
goes
read the
raw.
stat block.
Yeah.
They're reading the stat block. I'm like, this. No, not this.
Yeah.
But like, I love to reward my players for role playing, doing the cool extra stuff.
Well, it was
Yeah.
like when Cody's one character in Strahd, they're the freaking the transmutation
time?
wizard. So here
The time
there
you
was
murdered the child.
no. The time that there was the iron
I did
lock.
not.
Iron. No, you did murder a child. But the time
It
that there
wasn't
was
a child.
it was a child.
He was a child.
Or
What was
it was
it?
a teenager.
He's a young man. He's a young
Why do you
man.
think? Why do you think my character was so upset with you?
But anyway, let me get to the point of the iron padlock. He was like, "Hey, how is this chest locked?" And I was like, "Oh, it's just an iron padlock on it."
Yes.
And he goes, "Well, I'm changing that to wood and snapping it off." And I was like,
Yep.
"Fuck, here you go. Here's stuff." You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I definitely think just as a DM, there is methods of rewarding people. I think they need to spell it out for your beginner DMs that this is an aspect
Absolutely.
that you need to reward people. So I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, before we
Sounds
get even more off topic or more on topic, but stretch this out even longer, I think we're going to have to call it here, folks, for at least this first part. I believe there's many different aspects we could keep talking about, and I, of course, would love to have Sean on to discuss more of his stuff. I'm sure my other boys here agree. Steve, hold on to that list.
Oh, I've got this list.
We'll
locked and
work
loaded,
down
baby.
it at some point.
Okay.
100%.
Well, I think we could. I think we're going to be able to go back and tackle a bunch of different things. Like
Oh, for sure.
what could combat in 5.5 look like?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that could be a whole topic of discussion.
They actually removed combat completely.
Oh,
What would
God.
it look like if there was no combat in 5.5?
Yeah.
You flip a coin and that decides the fight.
Yeah, you guys lost. It's a TPK. It landed on heads. You guessed tails. I'm gonna
Yeah.
need you to draft up your new characters. That's how I'm playing Strahd from the rest of the time.
Yeah. How is the DM supposed to win if there's no combat?
Exactly. Well, you
Well,
get
you can just have all of your.
You become Harvey Dent. You have
Yep.
a two-faced coin, and
Yep.
you always win.
And
Well, I was gonna say you
revolver.
could also always win by just never telling your characters anything.
That's fair. But anyway, thank you everybody to coming out and watching this episode from the Bone Pony Ranch and friends. The friend is Sean. If you watch a lot of our live plays, he has played many different and interesting characters.
That's what I strive for. The characters have to be good, just interesting.
They're very interesting. And if you ever DM, or as we in the biz say, overlord for this man, you will hate his character through and through. And
That's true.
But
I
you
will
will
make your
also
life a
love
nightmare.
you will love aspects of it, and then you'll be like, why you gotta do this? And you're like, that's what my character would do. And you're like, I don't know if I believe that, but it also lines up very well. Thank you for coming, Sean.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you.
And I think that that about wraps it up for us over here at the Bone Pony Ranch. We're gonna bring the Bone Ponies back in, give them a good scrub down,
Feed him some oats.
wash off that filth that is 4E that we discussed.
My bone pony stepped in some 4E.
Oh
Yep.
no!
Big old pile of 4E.
And as always, check out, all of our links in the stable below, from Drive-Thru RPG to what other things we have discussed in this that will also be linked that aren't even related to us. But you know what? We talked about you. We definitely
We're
gonna
linking
link you. All right?
Yeah, we're looking them up.
Absolutely.
But that's it, boys. Tabletop Totality. You gotta get that merch.
It's very
right.
soft. Get the
It's-
merch.
It's great. You can make a beautiful
merch.
tapestry if you wish.
Ooh.
If you want to make sure everyone knows you live alone, follow what Neil does.
You don't know if I live alone. You have no clue. I have multiple personalities in my head. And I get them all out in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
How many
But-
different Kodomos are talking to you today?
Is that
Fucking
well?
funny.
It's kind of funny because you have a dragon living in your hand. You have 2 dead knights living in your sword.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I worship a pantheon of gods.
yeah. I think Rubric is maybe just losing it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
the,
man.
I
more,
wouldn't doubt
the more things come on, the more things manifest. Like now,
mean,
there's an
can you-
old man. Is the old man actually talking to the whole party, or is it just Rudenrick conversing with an old man and the party following? Nobody
don't know.
knows.
I mean, with all that Runrick's gone through in his short life, I would. be
In his
surprised if
21
he
years.
is
It's a long life
completely
for
gone insane.
Tallaraxia, right? It's a long life.
I mean, I
20
think half of our
years?
party is under the age of 20, so.
That's true.
Mhm.
That's fair. But thank
you're
you all,
fighting age.
folks. We'll catch
Yeah,
you
we
next
gotta-
time on Tabletop Totalities, Season 2,
Saddle up and ride.
Adventures. Yeah, saddle up.
Get
and ride.
ranched.
Get ranched.
All right.
Get ranched up 2021.
Bye, folks.
Bye.
Peace.